Welcome to another exciting episode of Leadership Talk here at Vijana Core. Today we have a special treat for you, Mr. Dennis Pato, our Executive Director, who is our special guest for tonight's show. In today's Leadership Talk, I am your host, Simon Peter. In the world of work today, technical expertise alone is not enough for someone to thrive as a leader in the workplace. Therefore, one needs an aspect of emotional intelligence as an added advantage in order for him or her to thrive as a leader at his or her workplace. Today, Mr. Dennis is going to delve deeper into giving us the understanding about emotional intelligence. I want to welcome you all for this show, and I want to say you stay tuned, and as you stay tuned, please listen to what he's going to say as you get ready to ask him the questions that will give you deeper understanding about the subject of emotional intelligence. Mr. Dennis, you're welcome.
Thank you, Simon.
Thank you so much, Mr. Dennis. Our dear audience, let us welcome Mr. Dennis as he's going to give us an understanding of what emotional intelligence is and its importance, and also he's going to talk about how to build connections, good connections at workplace. Thank you so much, Mr. Dennis. You're welcome. You can tell us what emotional intelligence is and go further and tell us other aspects of emotional intelligence. You're welcome.
Thank you. It's my absolute pleasure to be here with you today. I would like to appreciate your team for organizing this talk. Ladies and gentlemen, it's an honor to speak to you today on this subject of creating powerful connections in the workplace. Now, I want to start by sharing a personal story. Once upon a time, not long ago, I received some feedback to the effect that my emotional intelligence was low. Now, at first, I did not take that kindly. I thought to myself, wait, does that mean they think I'm not very smart? Are they saying I lack intelligence? And I'm sure some of you can relate to that kind of feedback and perception and what it can do to you. So you see, for the longest time, many of us thought that, including myself, that emotional intelligence is about IQ, it's about being highly logical, it's about being clever or smart. So to me, to say that I was low in emotional intelligence was more like an insult on the very essence of how I understood emotional intelligence then. So that set me, luckily, that set me on a journey to getting a bit deeper on the understanding of the subject of emotional intelligence. And it is that journey that I am here to speak to you about today, that emotional intelligence goes far beyond IQ. It goes far beyond being logical. And at its core, emotional intelligence is grounded in self-awareness, the capacity to recognize our strengths, limitations, and emotional triggers. And by developing a heightened self-awareness, we get to develop our perspectives and the ability to identify the kind of emotions that set us or trigger us off the track of our natural selves. Yeah. So what can I say? Through self-awareness, you immediately begin to acknowledge things like your fear, your inadequacies in certain areas, your anxieties in difficult situations. Like when I was coming into this studio to have this talk, I had a moment of anxiety, yeah? And I told some of the crew members here that I was feeling a bit anxious to be on this show. And in acknowledging that and talking about it, what I did to myself was to give myself the gift of freedom to walk and live freely off that, and therefore sit on a more grounded, from a more grounded angle to be able to have this conversation with you more freely. So emotional intelligence gives you that permission to delve a bit deeper into your self-awareness and have honest conversations with yourself. But emotional intelligence also goes beyond yourself. It's also about reading and understanding the feelings of the rest of the people that you're dealing with and how you yourself can appropriately respond to their feelings, their emotions. And that is 360 in all situations of life, yeah.
Yes. Oh, yes, thank you so much, Mr. Dennis. Could you please tell our audience how they can manage their own emotions and how they can read the emotions of other people and how it can help them?
Right. Growing and developing your emotional intelligence is a journey. Right, like I told you at the beginning, me, I was told to my face that, you know what, you have low emotional intelligence. And this was by way of feedback. Okay. So this was a few years ago. And when that happened, what that did to me, whereas on the one hand, I first felt insulted, on the other hand, it made me curious. It made me very curious, and I said, you know, let me find out what this emotional intelligence is, what it's about, and why is it that my scores are low on it? Because I know that I'm not a stupid person. Some people have told me that on some things, at least, I am smart. So I, until that point, wanted to believe that I was a smart person in certain aspects. So what is this aspect of emotional intelligence that I am not smart at? Yeah. So it sent me digging. It sent me digging. It sent me learning about emotional intelligence. It sent me going deeper into understanding myself as a person. And I did this by, you know, reading books on emotional intelligence, listening to podcasts, and also testing the very aspects of my emotional intelligence that had been challenged by both my assumptions and other people's assumptions. So it's a journey. It's not something that you can change in one day. But just like they also say that leadership, for example, leadership happens in moments. Yeah? It is the same thing with emotional intelligence. You ought to give yourself the permission to catch yourself off guard, and then with that, you tell yourself, okay, this is going to be a learning moment for me. Since I was very deliberate on developing my emotional intelligence, and here I am catching myself in an outburst that is totally unwarranted, for example, what is it that triggered that? Am I consciously aware of the preceding events that led to me feeling angry about this particular situation? Was it within the realms of my control? Could I have responded differently? And what is my anger outburst doing to the person to whom it is directed? So that is all about digging deep into your self-awareness and catching yourself, yeah, in moments like those. And it takes a lot of practice. It took me a while. But for my personality also, what happened was that I kept talking about it with friends, including the people who gave me this feedback that, you know, this low emotional intelligence of ours, we are working on it. And sometimes you're tripped and then you respond in a certain way, and then you jokingly ask, oh, I think that was low emotional intelligence at work. So for me, it was things like those that were ingredients of the journey. And I'm not saying that I have the highest EQ or emotional intelligence score right now, but I am in a much better place today than I was when I first received the feedback on my emotional intelligence.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you mean as you were in the journey of building your emotional intelligence, you didn't just read from books only, but also you consulted, okay, you sought feedback from your colleagues?
Constantly.
Oh, yes.
Constantly. So, you know, you can always ride on the shoulders of those who are taller than you.
It's true.
To be able to see far ahead. So like I mentioned, books were my companion. They still are. Podcasts are my companion on my path to getting better with my emotional intelligence and other subjects as well. But every day is also an opportunity for you to learn, to grow. And sometimes, like I said, like I talked about catching yourself in moments, sometimes that catching is not with yourself. Yeah, there are times when you're also being watchful of other people's emotional intelligence. So in a situation like this, in a workplace, for example, you and I work in the same office. Tomorrow, what is going to happen? We are working in a very high pressure situation. Your response, the way you handle me in that situation, from time to time will also make me go like, that was Simon at his lowest in emotional intelligence. Yeah? Or it happens and you do the direct opposite and we're like, oh wow, how does Simon do that?
Yes.
If it were me, I would have gone into flames, I would have snapped. But the way Simon handled that so calmly, so in such a collected way, it's amazing. I would like to grow my emotional intelligence muscles to be able to handle heated situations like Simon.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
By the way, there's something I'm getting, that as you practice emotional intelligence, you also have to keep your eyes on other people, and you really need to see how they are handling their situations, whether they are whether they have handled it emotionally intelligently, or
Yeah.
they failed.
That's
somewhere.
right. That's
Oh,
right.
yes.
And with observing other people, you are not just observing them to catch them and
Okay.
judge them. Yeah. There's another aspect of emotional intelligence that is called empathy. Okay.
Yes.
Empathy demands that or requires that you walk in another person's shoes. So again, to give another example that is contextual to the workspace, since we're talking about emotional intelligence at work, you will find maybe another colleague of ours is sitting all drooly at their desk. They don't want to talk to anyone. They have secluded the rest of the world. They are by themselves. And they are not like that every day. So if you are the kind of person who usually talks to everyone in office, what you're going to do is walk over to this person and say, oh, Simon, what's wrong today? What's happening? I noticed ABCD is going on with you. Is everything okay? You are seeking to get into their world. Now, of course, they may open up to you or they may not. Yeah? But yours is to extend a hand of empathy, to try and live a few seconds in their world and see what it is they are feel what it is they are feeling. Try to imagine what it is that is happening in their thoughts that is making them so low and low-spirited like that. But empathy is also applicable in different settings other than the example I've given you. It's basically about walking a mile in another person's shoes, trying to imagine what they would feel or how you would feel if you were subjected to the kind of situation they're going through. And I think our Lord Jesus Christ puts it perfectly in terms of empathy, that you do unto others what you would have them do to you. Yes, I think that's the most powerful statement around empathy.
That is so interesting. Now, Mr. Dennis, let's first talk about something concerning building connections, strong connections at workplaces.
Right.
Now, you realize that there are some people who just go to a workplace, they focus on the particular task they're supposed to accomplish. And now these people, they don't mind about people around them and how they are feeling. Now, how can one, what are some of the skills one can have or can employ in order to build strong connections with other people at workplace?
Yeah, empathy is really one of them. Empathy is one of them. You need to get out of yourself.
Okay.
Especially in a social or professional environment, not everything rotates around you as an individual. You have people from diverse backgrounds. The workplace really is a place of diversity. It's a place where you have people from all walks of life, people with all sorts of mannerism. So you as an individual, you're also going to carry your mannerism from whichever school or whichever home, whichever school of life, that the way you have been raised, and somehow you want your work environment to adjust to you. That happens a lot.
Yeah, it happens.
But that is not the way it's supposed to be.
Okay.
Somehow you have to find a place in your mind, in your heart, within your emotions, to adjust to your workplace.
Okay.
That means you open your eyes and see the others other than yourself, and accept their behavior, accept their personalities. Yeah? What that means is that when something happens that is occasioned by another person that ordinarily would trip you and make you go haywire, because you have understood these different personalities, you have understood the diversities at play in your workspace, you're able to deal with it better. That's why you hear people say, oh, I understand. Gloria, for example, is a person like this. So cut her some slack.
Yes.
That in moments like this, she doesn't thrive in this kind of situation. This is the kind of situation she thrives in.
Okay.
Okay. So that is just to add on to the point on empathy. But there is the other facet that is motivation.
Motivation.
Yeah?
Yes.
Now that's the other dimension of emotional intelligence. Now, when it comes to motivation, the thinking is that when negative emotions are happening to you that ordinarily would throw anyone off track, what you do is grab the opportunity within that negative emotion and ask yourself, what can I use this energy for to take me to the next best place? Okay, give me an example of a negative emotion.
A negative emotion.
Yes, or a situation where you would be feeling, okay, let me give you one. So in a work situation again like this, maybe you and your team are collaborating on a project proposal.
Yes.
With a very tight deadline. You're supposed to submit it today. And 2 members of the team are not in office. Maybe one got a sudden labor pain.
Yes.
And then another one got something else. So 2 members of the team are not in office. Suddenly, you are alone, and the remaining sections of that document are not exactly your areas of strength. So what do? You begin to feel, apart from the disappointment that comes with your team not being around, you're also now beginning to feel incompetent. And you're also beginning to feel a sense of disappointment and how you're going to disappoint your boss on the other hand. What do? What I would do in my now better emotional self, emotionally intelligent self, I will not waste any time. I will walk to my boss and say, this is happening, this is how I feel about it, and this is how I think it's going to affect the team, but give me more time, I'm going to fix it.
Okay.
Okay? In that, I have acknowledged the situation, I have also acknowledged my inadequacy, and I have given myself permission to continue to work through it.
Okay. So it means as you try to acknowledge your weakness or your inability in a certain field, there, when you help, you get to grow emotionally.
Yeah, you seek help. Yeah, you need to seek help.
Okay.
There's no shame in seeking help.
That's great.
Yes.
That's so interesting.
Yeah.
And now, Mr. Dennis, the audience would love to know, because you said before you had not known about what emotional intelligence is. You used to just behave in any way and to whom it may concern. Now,
I was just a nice person.
Yes. As you now started the journey of growing emotionally intelligent, what were some of the challenges that you faced as a person in walking that journey?
I think for me, learning about emotional intelligence has been nothing short of exciting. The challenges, I would say, are to do with things that are not so much within my own control, and learning to adjust in situations like those. Because my revelation about where I was with my emotional intelligence was quite a challenge to all my assumptions in terms of where I thought I had been. And so it took me back to square one to say, now going forward, considering that we might have offended so many people in our previous selves, we need to learn new ways of doing things. We need to learn new ways of saying certain things. We need to learn new ways of responding to certain situations. But you see, those ways are not written in some textbook. You wait until life has given it to you. And then you tell yourself, okay, now, here it comes. Here comes the moment of exercising emotional intelligence. And sometimes you catch it quite late, right? Sometimes you catch it after the fact. And you're like, oh, I just missed my moment of exercising emotional intelligence.
Yes.
Yeah, that person shouldn't have heard that from me. So those are just some of the challenges that you will face along the journey, and they're acceptable challenges because you don't hold yourself to the standard of as if being an angel to say, because now I know that I was not emotionally intelligent, tomorrow I'm going to wake up emotionally intelligent. No. Even people who have higher EQ than we, the average ones, still catch themselves in, for lack of a better way to put it, stupid moments, yeah? Where you look and say, oh, but this person is supposed to know better, do better, be better. And I'll give you some examples of world leaders. And
okay, Mr. Dennis, maybe before you give that example, I heard you've been mentioning a word like EQ.
Yeah, EQ is the
What
short
does it
for
mean?
emotional intelligence.
Okay.
Yes. So, you know, there's IQ,
Okay.
which is intelligence quotient.
Yes.
That is the one that measures how smart you are,
Okay.
your ability to be reasonable and so on. Like when you say, oh, this person is a clever person, you're talking about IQ.
That is IQ.
Yes, or intelligence quotient.
Okay.
Then EQ is emotional quotient. So the emotional quotient is what measures your emotional intelligence.
Okay.
Yes? How clever are you emotionally? Or where are you on the radar, on the scale of 1 to 10, where are you in terms of handling your emotions and managing other people's emotions when they push it to you? Where do you stand? Yeah, so in short, it is EQ.
So EQ plus IQ equals to?
If you are lucky enough to have a high IQ and a high EQ, then I guess the world is your oyster.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Yes, thank you so much, Mr. Dennis, for giving us that deep understanding about what emotional intelligence is. And also you talked about things related to building strong connections at workplace. And now, from me, I don't have much questions now. Maybe we will hear from our audience, the audience who are online, and the audience who are physically present here. You have to give your questions to Mr. Dennis, and he's going to right away answer your questions. So
Okay.
let's get some questions from our audience.
As you wait for your online audience to come through,
Yes.
I must say that now in hindsight, looking at the journey I have taken in improving my emotional intelligence, in hindsight now I can say there is nothing terribly wrong for you to find yourself in a place where you have low emotional intelligence. Okay. In fact, while it is desired that we all have high emotional intelligence,
Yes.
it's okay if you have a low emotional intelligence. You can always work on it. In fact, some people die with low emotional intelligence. Not from, but I mean by the time of their death, they haven't really worked on it. And some of them are highly successful people. Some of them are people who have led us. Some of the best global leaders are people with terrible, very low emotional intelligence. You want examples?
Yes. Can you
Former US President Richard Nixon,
okay.
brilliant guy, very politically savvy, but his emotional intelligence, very low. Okay. And he demonstrated that to the world in this very famous saga, the Watergate scandal. A long time ago, you and I were not yet born. Okay. In that, where his low emotional intelligence came into play in that particular saga was he tried to cover it up. And in trying to do that, the whole thing just blew up in his mind. Yeah, I mean, in his face. The other world leader with fairly low emotional intelligence is former French President Nicolas Sarkozy. Yeah? Now, another brilliant guy, very energetic, very social, but he was a loose cannon. He would disagree openly and violently with his opponents. There are also records of him attacking people, including journalists. Yeah? So that is, again, low emotional intelligence at work. To give you an example that might be closer to you, who is a social media person, is Elon Musk. Yeah? Yes. Elon Musk, the CEO of SpaceX and Tesla, and as you may know him as the owner of Twitter, yes, which he now calls X. Elon is a brilliant guy, and he has transformed the world in terms of technological advancement. Yes. But his emotional intelligence is wanting. The world sees him as a short-tempered person, short-circuit. Yeah? He does not mind public display of his outbursts, and you can see that even on his social media feeds. Yeah. So, and I'm giving all these examples to say that you can be very successful in other areas when your emotional intelligence is low. And if I knew this information by the time I was getting my feedback that my emotional intelligence was low at that time, I would not have felt as bad as I did. What I felt at that moment was as if they were telling me I wasn't smart, I was stupid, which was not the case. I was succeeding in other areas, but not succeeding very well in these other dimensions.
Yes. Yes. Yes, Mr. Dennis. If we look at Elon Musk and examples of some personalities that you gave, of course, I know they are world-class figures. And now, you get to realize that, for example, Elon Musk is having low emotional intelligence. What do you think could be hindering him from developing his own emotional intelligence? Because according to our understanding, we might think that such a great personality might have come across different aspects of life. Okay, what helped him to succeed? He might have encountered many things in the way of his success. So what do you think would be lacking?
I think that the best person to ask that question is Elon Musk. But, you know, I can just give a very general, unqualified, or rather, yeah, a very general comment on that. Yes. That it's not uncommon for highly successful people or people who are succeeding in other areas of their lives to imagine that they don't need anything else. Okay. Yeah? And so there you have the element or aspect of pride setting in, and that can tilt the balance. So I'm not saying that that is the case for Elon Musk, but it's highly likely that sometimes when you have that level of success, you then handpick who else or what else you want in life, depending on what kind of a person you really are, right? Okay. Yes.
Yes, thank you so much, Mr. Dennis. I want to know if the audience are ready with their questions. Okay. So as we continue to wait for for the audience to give us their questions. Yes, Mr. Dennis, maybe there could be something which you might have not talked about, maybe because of time, or you probably, or it probably skipped your mind. Could there be any? If it is there, then you can tell the audience.
No, there's always a lot, but the one that I particularly would like us to talk about is, what about you? From the conversation we have had and in your preparation for this emotional intelligence talk,
yes.
What are you taking home with you in terms of, maybe you might be more emotionally intelligent than me and the people like me,
okay.
But how do you find emotional intelligence at play in the world of work,
okay.
Given where you work?
Yes, me personally, I really can't tell whether I have a high emotional intelligence or I have a low one, but I think I have a low one, a low
Why?
emotional intelligence, because there are ways I respond to things sometimes, and I find that it ends up affecting my colleague. Yes, it later brings negative impact on that person, and the person literally gets annoyed with me, maybe through the way I maybe respond to that person. Yes. For example, me as a person, it is really hard for me to control my emotion whenever I'm insulted.
You want to give it to them.
It is
But
hard
you see, to say you are emotionally intelligent is not to say you are perfect.
Okay.
Okay? Emotional intelligence is not perfection. Even if you are emotionally intelligent, you still get angry. You will still throw a stone sometimes. Okay? So it's just to say that emotionally intelligent people manage it better. And from what you're telling me, it sounds to me like you have the first dimension of emotional intelligence, which is self-awareness.
Okay.
And that's a win.
Wow.
That's a good place to start.
I'm happy about that.
It starts from the self-awareness and acceptance of what might or might not be working well.
Okay.
And then you work it forward from there.
Oh, yes.
Yes.
Oh, that's so great.
So, and it's a journey. Don't give yourself a deadline on emotional intelligence.
So that means I have started the journey.
I would say so. I would say so. Yes.
That is so great.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes. Is there any other thing which you can tell the audience?
Yeah, that emotional intelligence can also mean the difference between your career growth or none of it. Because, you know, when you learn to connect better with people, not just within the office setting, emotional intelligence can help improve your networking ability. And you might have heard time and again that about the value of networking, yeah? Some people say your network is your net worth, okay?
Yes.
In other words, the people you have within your network determine how far you can go in life. But to build that, to grow that, you need to have a certain level of connection or ability to connect with people, to understand people before you can seek for them to understand you. Okay. And so once you have mastered that, you then begin to see a growth in the expansion of your network, because your ability to connect easily with people is improving, isn't it?
Yes.
Now, that with time translates in the growth of your career trajectory, because you're meeting the right people, you're connecting with the right people, you know how to handle yourself in different situations and so on and so forth. So emotional intelligence can contribute very easily to career growth. But even if it's in a closed environment, like in your office like this, I think, and I think I have observed it, that people who know how to connect better with people tend to grab opportunities faster.
That's true.
because people will perceive you as more approachable. They will perceive you as even more reliable. They will perceive you as more trustworthy. There's just a whole play around that that opens up opportunities for you to be able to grow. Yeah. Yes.
Okay. Thank you so much, Mr. Dennis. We have one question from some audience. We have Mrs. Nakato Jacqueline from Mukono, and the question is, how can organizations or employers create an environment that supports and encourages emotional intelligence development among their workforce?
Right.
Thank you so much, Mr. Dennis.
Okay, so I think that the first thing, that every organization absolutely ought to do is to cultivate a culture of open communication. In my opinion, it starts and dies with communication. Yeah? Because if you're going to talk about building connections, even if it's just basic functional connections, for you to be able to work as a team, communication is the key chain. It is the key chain. So where the culture of communication is here and there, institutions will struggle. And this is not just for institutions, even individuals. Because after all, the different dimensions of emotional intelligence are all about communication. Yes?
It is
Even if, whether you are talking about self-awareness, it is about you connecting deeply with yourself.
Yes.
And maybe being able to communicate to others about your self-awareness. When you talk about empathy, empathy is about communication.
Yes.
Yeah? First you feel it and then you communicate to the other
Which
person.
means communication encompasses.
It is all encompassing.
across.
It cuts across.
Okay.
It cuts across. I don't think that there is any place, any environment, or any individual who can successfully grow their emotional connection without mastering the art of communication. Now, for institutions, it's really about growing the culture. You can go to any school and study communication, but if you're not willing to open up the culture and cultivate it and let everybody know how free communication works in certain spaces, it's going to take you a while before you win.
Wow, that's great. We have another question from an audience. This is from Anita Lempachu from Pakwach, and she's asking that how does emotional intelligence affect effective decision making?
Yeah, that's a very good question, and I want to use the example of negative emotions. It has been said, and I think I might have also personally experienced it, that when you're a person with low emotional intelligence, you get angry quickly. Things get emotional very quickly for you. Like you mentioned, someone insults you, you want to give them the fivefold ministry.
Yes.
Yeah? And so if you are that kind of person, you and I know that decisions that are taken in anger usually turn out to be wanting, isn't it? And so when you're about to make a decision, especially a major decision, and you're angry, what you want to do is take a back step, breathe in, and say, maybe I should sit on this and make this decision when I am not angry. So that is the number one way that low emotional intelligence, if manifested in situations of anger, can affect decision making negatively, even adversely in some cases.
So that means someone can reveal his emotional unintelligence more at the time when he or she is angry.
I think anger is a manifestation of lack of emotional intelligence.
Okay. Yes, thank you so much.
I mean, demonstrated anger. Yeah. Remember, we said that you can have low emotional intelligence. Having low emotional intelligence doesn't mean you are doomed, but also having high emotional intelligence does not mean you don't get angry. You get angry. A person with a higher emotional intelligence just knows how to manage the situation when it happens. You know how to manage it. You know how to control your anger. You know what to do with that angry energy that you have within you. Yeah, someone has insulted you. Instead of giving them fivefold ministry, you hold your hand together and then breathe in. Yeah, you are somebody who is aware that this anger is happening within you, and you have already told yourself what to do with it, or what not to do with it. Yeah, you have told yourself, what I'm not going to do with this anger is to slap somebody. What I'm not going to do with this anger is to slam the door. What I'm not going to do with this anger is to yell back at somebody because they hurled an insult at me. Let me hurl one back at them, like sometimes you see with taxi conductors in town. Yeah.
That is so interesting, Mr. Dennis. Now we have this question from Mr. Chunya I. And the question is, what is the difference between self-estimate and emotional intelligence?
Okay, I think he meant self-esteem. The difference between, Mr. Chunya, I thank you for asking that question. Thank you very much. It's a good question. The difference between self-esteem and emotional intelligence. They are different. They are very different. Mr. Chunya, let me tell you, before that person burst my balloon on emotional intelligence, before they told me I had low emotional intelligence, my self-esteem was high up there. Because I was winning in other areas. I was doing other things very well. In some cases, I still am. And when they told me I had a low emotional intelligence, if I hadn't taken it well, if I hadn't embarked on the journey to understand what this emotional intelligence is, and if I was a person of very fragile ego, that would have done a number on my self-esteem. Yeah? Self-esteem is really about believing in yourself. And I believe in myself. I believed in myself before they told me that. I believe in myself even now. But what I did was to grab the opportunity to understand what this person meant. And in that, I came to the realization that there was something I did not know. And there was a better way for me to become a better person. I was missing out on the opportunity to become more self-aware, to become more empathetic with other people, and by so doing, to strengthen the way I relate with them. Those things, while they may have a thing or two to do with self-esteem, you can be a person of very high self-esteem with an extremely low emotional intelligence.
Okay.
Yes, and you see it all the time with people who have been labeled proud, arrogant. They have their esteem. But because of the way other people experience them, you hear they are being branded different names. That is because of how they relate with other people, how they connect or disconnect with other people. So esteem is on one track, emotional intelligence is on another. But again, just like if you can have a high IQ and high EQ in one package, you're a winner. I think it works also in terms of having a high self-esteem and a high emotional intelligence in one package. You would be the kind of person this world is looking for.
Okay. Yes, I hope, Mr. Chunya, you get that well, and I think it is not only benefiting you, but it's also benefiting other audience as well. And now, Mrs. Anita again wants to know the measures and the examples of the way that people prove that they are not intelligent emotionally.
I think Anita is asking about the manifestations of low emotional intelligence.
Yes.
Yeah. Again, the first one is you're quick to anger. you're quick to get angry and demonstrate that anger openly to people, that shows your ineptitude in being able to handle your inner emotions, especially the negative emotions. So when you eventually begin to grow your emotional intelligence, you begin to understand that there are better ways of handling anger, things like frustration and disappointment. Yeah. Some time back, when I lost one of my longest friendships, it took me quite a while to recover from that loss. And that is the other pointer on people with low emotional intelligence. I think it took me almost 2 years to recover from that particular loss. I was drooling and mourning over it, and this and that, and there was nothing that was going to make me move on. Yeah, but as you keep picking different tools in life, what to do, what not to do, you learn new things. Yeah, then some of these things about yourself come back to revisit you, and you're like, I think I'm taking long to move on from this because there's a part of me that is suffering from this. Yeah, so there are several manifestations of low emotional intelligence. But again, I do encourage our audience, including Anita, to interest themselves in learning about emotional intelligence, as well as IQ. Yeah, for emotional intelligence, there are so many resources out there, but the one that I personally recommend is their podcasts. But there's also a book that I would recommend, a book by Daniel Goleman, and it's called Emotional Intelligence 2.0. Why it can matter more than IQ. Yeah, so you read that book, and you will pick quite a number of insights. You will go deeper into some of the things that we are discussing here.
Okay. Yeah, I think that's a good recommendation about the issue of the book by Daniel Goleman. I think I also came across it.
Right.
I came across that book.
Wonderful.
And there is another question coming from Miss Gloria Ashan, and she's in Mukono. And the question is, do you think there are people who are incapable of developing emotional intelligence?
No. That question to me is like asking, do you think there are people who are incapable of learning? And I am probably not aware, but for as far as I know, I would say no. Anyone can learn emotional intelligence. Anyone can become emotionally intelligent.
Yes.
Yeah? It takes the willpower within you. First of all, it takes acceptance. Yeah? So don't be like me when they say, hey, your emotional intelligence might be not where it's supposed to be. You don't go on somebody's throat and say, are you calling me stupid? Yeah, so you just like I usually tell people about feedback, when you receive feedback, don't fight it.
Okay.
Yeah, you don't have control over it. You don't fight it. Take a back step, pause, receive that gift, because feedback is a gift.
Yes.
Then reflect upon it and ask yourself whether in your heart of hearts you know that that particular feedback is true or not true. Yeah, you don't look at it in terms of I want to look nice. Have a conversation with yourself, self-awareness. Yeah, and ask yourself, but is there any truth in this thing that they are talking about? And if you find any gaps, if you find any truth, then you have your work cut out for you.
Okay.
You begin to work on it. So to answer Gloria, I think anyone can learn to become emotionally intelligent, and there's no university for it, yeah, but there are resources out there for it. There are also recommendations of certain practices that can help you in real time. For example, some therapists recommend that in your moment of anger, when you're feeling angry, you truly are, something has happened or something has been said and you're feeling angry, they recommend that you take a back step. Pause. If you were talking, shut up and breathe in and then out. You breathe in and then out. Now, You might know that that works not only for anger, also anxiety. Should I tell the audience that before we went live on air, you and I were breathing in and out? Yes, so it works. It does work, yes.
Yes, it works. Thank you so much, Mr. Dennis. There is another question from Mrs. Assumpta Nasali, and she's asking that can you have a wrong analysis about yourself, about your level of emotional intelligence? Where do you think you are emotionally intelligent, but when, okay, let me read it again. Can you have a wrong analysis about yourself, about your level of emotional intelligence, where you think you're emotionally intelligent, but when that's not the case? And how can you come to this realization?
Yeah, the answer is yes, it's possible. It's very possible. Because, again, I choose to believe that I am not my best mirror. My best mirrors are the people who experience me.
Okay.
Yeah? Whether on a daily or whatever the interval might be. So that is the number one reason why I personally really, really value feedback. Yeah? Now, each time I get feedback from somebody, I am excited because, once again, somebody is holding a mirror in front of me, telling me, this is how I see you. This is how I hear you. This is how I am experiencing you. Okay? So, that I take more seriously than, not that it's the truth, but I take it seriously in the sense that that is the self that I am putting out there, and that's how people are seeing it. So if the feedback or the way this person experiences me is not accurate, I can always sit down and reflect upon that. But I can even do one more. Go to the person and have a conversation with them on why they experience me the way they do.
Okay.
Or in what circumstances do I come across like that? That, for me, works much better than me holding a self-mirror to myself and saying, oh yeah, I know that I know that I know that I am emotionally intelligent, and the world has got nothing on me. It's me and my knowledge. No,
Okay.
It doesn't always work like that. Sometimes we are wrong about ourselves. Okay?
That's
Of
great.
course, there are things that we know about ourselves that sometimes people cannot even tell us, but most of the time, you will find that you're going to need someone else to hold a mirror to you.
That's great, Mr. Dennis. Thank you so much for delivering such a captivating speech and to our audience. Now that we are coming to the end of our show, could you please give our audience your last words and some key takeaway?
Yeah. So
in brief.
No, for me, it's just a very short statement.
Yes.
When it comes to emotional intelligence, while our Lord Jesus said, "Do unto others what you would have them do unto you," there is a man I admire, a man who teaches leadership, and I follow him a lot. His name is John Maxwell. John Maxwell says, oh my God, what does he say? He says, what is this quote? It's about, he says, people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. So you see, that statement and the one from Jesus, do unto others what you would have them do unto you. For me, those are just the summaries of emotional intelligence, really. Yeah, because, again, your emotional intelligence is supposed to help the world experience you better. And it is, through the lens of the world, it's about how empathetic you are with them, how self-aware you are about yourself, and therefore are able to serve out the best version of yourself. Okay, you have had this joke that the stupid person doesn't feel the pain of their stupidity. It is the rest of the world.
Rest of the world.
Yeah, so for me, that is really what summarizes emotional intelligence for me.
Yes,
Yeah.
thank you so much, Mr. Dennis, for giving us such a deep speech concerning emotional intelligence and issues related to connections at workplace. Thank you so much, and you have really portrayed an example of generosity, because if you had kept all these words to yourself, not even me would know that there is something deep about emotional intelligence. So thank you so much for delivering that speech and giving us that knowledge. And to
Thank
our
you.
audience, I want to say thank you so much for joining us today, uh, for joining us today in this leadership talk. And I want to say next time, next month, we are going to have another topic to discuss in our leadership talk. And please, I advise that you have to stay tuned, be alert, because the notification is going to come about the next episode. So thank you so much. As you go back, please note that emotional intelligence is a journey. It's a journey that you start and it does not end. There is somewhere where you're going to act lowly in terms of emotional intelligence. But please don't feel bad about it because you're a human being. But I want to urge that please, please, and please make sure you practice the act of emotional intelligence in all that you do. From me to you, stay blessed. Until next time. Thank you.
Thank you.